Hi.
Good morning, Aditi.
Morning.
Hello,
Hi.
Aditi. I'll be keeping my camera off today because there's no power. So I'm on the phone.
Okay, not a problem.
What to do?
Ah, just seeing your picture. Elaine, no, this is a nice picture.
Not very needly, Aditi. How do I get pine needles that look
Hi.
like pine needles?
So the hi Paru, hi.
Hi.
Okay, so there's two things to this. One is when you make a sketch like this, sometimes even if you just scribble where the foliage is going to be in a particular manner, it indicates what tree it is just by the structure. So you don't really need to be too concerned about making the pine needles neatly. So what
Yes, but overall, at least like you did yesterday, you did the last class. You did a few leaves that were hanging down. You see, that gave the impression of a mango tree.
right. So in this case, consider creating a contrast between the foliage and the grasses that you've drawn. So as of now, the grass has the same texture as the tree. And also a similar line continues on the mountainscape. So,
Okay.
so if that line were not seen elsewhere, there wouldn't be any. I mean, these are subtle things that the brain puts together. So the pine needle is probably not looking pine needly to you because of these grasses. That's one. Secondly, there are some blank spaces in the filling.
Now, I'll tell you what the blank places were. It was sunlight, and I didn't know how to do the lit up places. I could only think of pencil sketching me to leave it blank. You know what I mean? When it's very sunny and it's kind of lit up the edges.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to.
Yeah, so in a pencil sketch, that becomes a little difficult. So I would actually, if you can share the image.
I will. I'll
screen
just
now,
share the picture.
then I'll
So
be able to see it.
okay.
Okay, so that and then the consistency of the texture through the foliage. So in some places it is soft, in some places it is spiky.
So I have to keep it spiky. Even if it's less, it should be spiky.
No, no, no.
Oh.
Strategic places you can keep it spiky. So here I can say that there is a lot of spikiness. If you just share the picture, I'll do a small portion and I'll show you.
I'll do that. I'll just do that. Let me just get to Pinterest. It's on my Pinterest board. I'll just get. I'll do that. You carry on. I'll tell you when I manage to find it.
Okay.
Waste our time. Yeah.
Sorry, my room is extra messy today. So I'm not.
No, no, don't worry. I still need to see you. I won't see the mess. If you can keep keep the video on.
Yeah.
Believe me, this is the only patch that is presentable in my studio. There's mess everywhere else. I will not.
Yeah. That's working last couple of days. So when I'm working, it's like an explosion happens.
Yeah, and you find your stuff only in the explosion. I cannot find my stuff when everything is cleared up. Then suddenly I don't know where glue is.
Yeah, because I don't know where I've kept it.
Just sending it to you.
Yes.
I was getting ambitious with trees and pencil sketching. And there it is. I've put it on the group.
All right. Let me. Yeah.
Such a lovely tree and very picturesque, but
yeah, it's beautiful.
It's
Okay.
so beautiful, and the sunlight.
Let me make a quick sketch and I'll show you.
Um, 2-3 people asked about the class because I posted it on Facebook.
Mhm.
So I've shared your number and the details.
Oh, wonderful.
Let's see how many actually follow through.
1% usually follows through.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a very low
I think
number.
4
attrition
people
rate is
asked. I
amazing.
shared with 4 people. So let's see what happens.
I think it takes, firstly, you have to be, it has to be at the right time in life. So people have to
Correct.
have time to give themselves. So I don't blame them. There is so much desire to do
Correct.
something, but they just don't have the time. And secondly, by the time they
Yeah.
have time, they should see it worthwhile. And then
Yeah.
they have to be brave enough to take the plunge. So there are several things that have to fall in place, but they do. So
I have hopes for 2 out of the 4 because,
come on.
in fact, 1 out of the 4 sent me a picture of a bird she sketched,
Okay.
seeing a picture online, which is why I shared with her.
Okay.
And the other 2 have been dabbling for a while, they've been painting, whatever. But I guess to actually commit to a time once a week, that is what.
Yeah. It'll happen. It'll
Uh,
happen. You have to keep asking them every
Yeah.
month, every 2 months. When are you coming? When are you? Okay. So
I'll keep posting, no, automatically they'll only ask, tell me.
I think so. Your consistency will make them feel worse and worse.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the picture that Elaine has sent.
Yeah.
And now if you see, I get what you're
Oh, how
saying,
beautiful.
Elaine. There are light patches of sunlight. But in this, what you need to keep in mind is that the pine needles are still there. And while we're doing this in pencil, you can translate lighter colors into lighter shades. So you don't go completely white unless there is white. So over here, if you notice that there are certain white patches, which are the patches of sky seen through the branches, that remains white. And since you are not coloring the background, everything in the background remains white.
Yes.
Then, so it's just so that you don't confuse that with the leaves, you create a lighter shade of pencil. So we can do 6 different shades of pencil and do them gradually. So I'm going to show you a small patch.
Yeah.
See if that makes sense. Oh, sorry. Just a second.
Yes. Isn't Rita's
Daisy, no.
Okay, so first we go with the structure. So that's fairly simple. You do straight. Make sure that your lines are not straight at any point. I think you've got that texture really nice. And the best bit about drawing trees is that you can keep correcting these lines back and forth, and it automatically creates a texture of the tree. So you really don't have to do anything more. Now here as well, you will see that there are some places where there is sunlight. And as far as the bark is concerned, because it's got a nice thick outline, You can afford to keep some patches white for the sunlight to look really vibrant, very shiny, and a stark contrast. Because there's no confusion about this, whether this part of the tree is part of the trunk or whether it is part of the sky, simply because it has a firm, continuous line. And then you can do all sorts of texture. Now over here, there's a texture that runs sideways a little bit, as I see it. And that often happens with trees that are windswept, I think. So like, as I'm traveling over here, I am making the texture dark in some places and very light in some places. And then where the sunlight is hitting, I'm keeping it blank, not shading at all. Now, when you get to the trees, you can make a silhouette of the shape with just these lines. So only lines that are spiky and mostly upward. So the entire silhouette is made up of lines which are upward. Now, if you notice these kinds of pines, almost like a bonsai pine, hardly ever have anything pointing downward. So they almost always have leaves that are as if you have planted, if you've seen how wheat germ grows in a pot, it's always growing up, 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 up. And then in between this, you have branching. Seems to have very complicated branching. Go with the color that you see. Dark greens will be dark, and the lighter greens will be just a few lines in between, or even a lighter shade. So I'm not doing any soft shading at all. Now there will be some places where I'll keep it blank, but these edges of the blank spaces are not rounded off. So what I see in your sketch is a rounding of the edges, where you have marked the silhouette of the tree. And then in some places there is an overall filling. And then in some places there are spikes. So this is a very confusing visual. You do not make a rounded edge at all. Suppose you're not comfortable with making an edge with just these lines. You can just, this is like how we make fences. It's not very difficult. So you mark lines, a border like that, like a fence. Then move and make the next line. And then move and make the next line. So no, usually we are concerned about the uniformity of the line. And here we want the line to be not uniform. And you realize that when you start making borders, everything starts looking very, very uniform. Something that you don't want. So the trick is to draw fences far apart. And the lines are not equal in height. And here now you can make brief dark spots, but not more than 3 or 4 lines. And keep moving. So what happens is that if you made the line, the edge with just these vertical lines, it already, even if you leave it blank, it already starts looking more spiky because there is no other line to confuse the eye.
Absolutely. Quite right. Yeah. Understood.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so now today we are doing foxes. And I've always been fascinated with foxes just because we don't see so many over here. And somehow, because they're such a tiny animal and yet so furry, I used to think of fox is like a big dog till I saw pictures of foxes with people, and then I realized that they are just pretty like a
Small.
small dog, yeah. But they're very majestic. I quite love their look and also how furry they are. So I'm using the fox for us to do a study on animals. Now, when we are doing a study on animals, you think about how, I don't know if you all have seen the behind the scenes of some Disney movies. There, they would have, you would have artists sitting, like when they did this, when they animated the Jungle Book. They actually had animators sit in a room where there was a tiger, where there was a bear, and they would madly sketch all kinds of movements of the animal so that they understood how the animal moved, how the animal sat, or simple things like the breathing. If you look at animation from that time, hand drawn animation, or even now, you can see how much detail goes into making a creature that is drawn look like it is alive. So there are things in when you are making a study of animal, whatever it be, any kinds of animals, there are more things that you study in them than you would do for things like fish or insects. Because often mammals are closer to us, we understand their biology a little differently. With insects and with reptiles, it is still very different. So next week we will be doing some. What are we doing next week? We're doing reptiles, I think. So you'll see the difference between the two. So whenever you're studying an animal, now regardless of what kind it is a good idea to have about 4 or 5 different types of pictures of that animal. One sitting, standing, walking, jumping, and then some details of the ear, the nose, the eye. And each of them also, then the more you want to study, take more options of that. So if you have the eye, it is how the eye is seen from the front, how it is seen from the side, how it is seen from the back. So there are various ways in which that eye moves, and each of them is significant to the species. So you are able to then see one aspect of the animal and know what it is. Usually, this is color or silhouette, or maybe a defining feature. Like obviously, if it's a trunk, you know that it's not a buffalo. But other than that, there are a few things like eyes, which are also very distinct for that species. All cows and that whole bovine family will have similar eyes. So will all goats, and so on and so forth. But within the species, then each of those animals will have a different kind, something different that will differentiate the two. So we are going to attempt at sketching some of these details. So we have a full frontal face, a side profile, and then a focused face. And then we have a couple of nice standing and sleeping poses of the fox. Let's see how much we can do. I'd like to do all of these because some of these have to be quick sketches after you've done a good study of it. So now when we come to the fox, just the detail of the fox, I'll go over how we're going to draw it and how you should see these animals. Last year we had done dogs and cats and I think fish. So this time I've kept it similar, but I sometimes feel foxes are like somewhere between dogs and cats. The ears are like cats, the face is like a dog. So the proportions are going to be slightly different. Now, as usual, whenever we have to draw anything from a reference, anything, whether it's a animal, a building, an object, start with basic geometric shapes. Start to identify the geometry of the creature. So here we have a circle. Circles are easy to draw because you know that they are going to always be uniform. I'm trying to get that circle exactly on the fox's face. Okay. With a circle, you don't have to worry about how long the circle is, how wide it is. It's all just a circle. Now, once you have a circle, you can divide it in half. This very disciplined fox is looking straight into the camera. This is so cool. It's almost like it's a deep fake. And the moment you can make a grid on anything, it's so much easier to make the drawing. Now, from each of these points, look at the kind of line that you can make where you have no I mean, it's a completely objective line. There are no variables over there. Like over here, a circle with two lines, center vertical and center horizontal, done. Now look at something like this. If I were to draw a line from the top on either side, now here the question comes, how far are you going to draw this line, right? We can't just say, just draw it at so-and-so angle or 10 degrees or 15 degrees. We have to assume we do not have any tools. So in that event, what we do have is at least a rudimentary knowledge of clock face. So you have 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So each quarter is divided into 3 parts. And this can be fairly ad hoc, not very precise. That's still fine. And this will at least give you some kind of starting point. So from the top of the clock, so almost like from 12 o'clock, you draw a line straight down to the 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock point. Now my 5 o'clock point is not accurate. So I'll keep the 5 o'clock point, but I'll draw the line a little narrower. Then somewhere in between over here, I will make another circle. This circle can be at from half level over here. So this is, oh, it's not a circle, it's an oval. Then I have to move it higher. If I make a circle like this, the snout comes exactly in the center, but it's an oval. And at half of this circle, if I draw a line from the half end, I could possibly get some indication. No, it's not at half, it's at a quarter that I can get the mouth. And how far does the mouth go? It goes to, this is center, this is half, this is half. No, it's not half there. Half is here. So two things, the eye is in this section. It's in the middle over here. And the ends of the mouth go just a little beyond the eye. I'm going to be taking a screenshot of this and sharing it. So you will have it. We'll have it with us for reference. Now from the corner of the eye, if we draw a line going towards, you have 11 o'clock and you have 10 o'clock, somewhere between 11 and 10, you get the point, the edge of the ear. Is it the same on this side? Pretty much. And then you have a line that comes between 11 and 12 that goes round up to the ear, both sides, 11 and 12. And comes down a little closer to 10 than 11 as it comes down, and it's almost straight. That covers all the features, right? Okay. So I'm sharing this now. And you can use this for drawing the whole face as a sketch. It's still going, huh? I don't know why my system is so slow today. I think it's gone. All right. Now, when we are making this sketch, make it a small sketch. Don't make it too large. We're not making a full page sketch. We will try to make all the 5 poses of the animal within this one page. The reason for keeping the sketch small is because as beginners, it's good to limit your scope rather than making it too large. When you make it a small scope illustration, you have fewer details to furnish. So your commitment is expected to be limited over here. When you have more confidence and you have the ability to fill in certain bits of information or data that is not easily seen on a photograph or your reference image, but you know how things will go, then you can enlarge the image. Because remember, you have to draw each and everything in a picture. We have this, the page is going to be completely blank. So right at the outset, the things to remember when you are making an illustration from a reference point is it's all about size, shape, placement of each element or each line, proportion. So with respect to the items that you've already drawn, how do you draw the next item? These are the most important. And the questions you will often ask is, what is the length of the line? What is the angle of the line? Where do I draw it? And then eventually it'll come to darkness, color, wherever applicable, texture. Now, this is what I have identified as all that you need to figure out how to go about illustrating it. Now, let me demonstrate. If I were to start with first size, identify the size of the picture you want to make. I want to make the fox's face just about so much. Looking at the reference image, it seems like if I want my fox to be this large, the circle has to be about this tiny. And then the ears will stick out just a little bit. So that gives me a good starting point, which is often the place where most beginners crumble. Start with a circle, it's easy to make a circle. Then make a vertical and horizontal line. Your circle does not have to be perfect, mind you. So even if you'll end up making an oval, correct that circle, change it, add a few lines. As long as you make it light, it won't matter. Then we have to draw the entire clock face if you want, because we are going to use all these references. So 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. And then you will make these lines. So see how casually I'm drawing them, not looking at them with great accuracy. Then we have a line coming over here, that's half. This will become too far, this will become too narrow. Constant adjustments. The eye will be somewhere here. There's a circle somewhere here, which is slightly bigger than half, right? The half point comes somewhere here. And then this is where you draw the snout. And the mouth is like this. Then from the corner of the eye, between 10 and 11, you draw a line. Now, how long is this line? Here is a question. You can just keep going indefinitely. So we need to know whether the line outside of the circle is about the same size or length as we see it inside the circle. If it were bare, in all likelihood, the line would be in such a way that the ears and the head end at the same point. Because this is a canine, the ears are slightly longer, but they are not longer than the distance between the corner of the eye. So we have a limit. You don't make it double height. You make it slightly lower. So this is where proportion comes in. With respect to the earlier features, how is the next feature going to be drawn? And before you know it, you start getting a semblance of the reference image. And you can arrive at a fair degree of accuracy with this. Beyond this, it's the darkness or lightness of the pencil. We still have to focus on certain shapes like the eye, certain textures like the fur, and places where there is color and not color differentiate, all of that. Okay, do you want to give it a shot? I'll stop at this point and then we will start the shading. Richa, I can see that you are looking up and down. If you want, sit back and take the book in your lap. Yeah, because your posture is also a little worrisome. Your shoulders will start hurting soon and your neck will get a crick. So this goes for all of you actually. If you want, just take your book and sit back, take your book in your lap like this and draw it in such a way that your head is not moving up and down. Only your eyes are moving up and down in the same plane. Your references will be seen much more objectively that way. So while you're drawing this, just see how dark your line is coming and how freely your hand is moving. So just a few tips on drawings. I know you've done this all of last month, but be careful about holding the pencil too close because that reduces your mobility and your lines start becoming too clunky. They look very labored. So even if you're unfamiliar with it, hold the pencil a little far away. Automatically, your lines will be lighter. Also, you're able to move just your fingers subtly, and that whole physics thing about moving little at one end, but if you have a long arm, it creates a lot more action at the end. There's something about work and force and all I remember. Bring that back. It is, I would never have thought it would have helped me in life, but it does. It's brilliant. So when you're holding the pencil close over here and you want to make a texture, your entire arm has to move. So if I need to make a line that's an inch long, my whole hand is moving. But I could do the same amount of work if I take my hand a little behind and I just move my fingers. See? This is a very, very significant difference in drawing versus writing. Eventually, it would be great if you write holding the pencil really far away also. But for that, you might need just a few weeks of training yourself to do it. Your lines are much lighter, your writing is a lot, I think it looks very facile, not labored. And you can do a lot more strokes. So eventually, when you want to do very calligraphic decorative writing also, it helps to hold the pencil far away. All right, so now after you've drawn this, I'm assuming everybody's finished with this. Go back to the original image because now you have laid down the foundation and now you have to just build the features on this. So I normally start off with a feature that I can draw like a medium level or high level of difficulty. So I often start off with the left side eye of the picture because I still am not confident whether I will be able to draw that properly. I can draw the right eye very well. Elaine, in your case, it would probably be reversed. So right-handed people learn to draw the right eye of the picture first and much easier, and vice versa for left-handed. So here again, go back. We have to keep going back to this. Now for the eye, what is the angle of the upper lid? How long does that line go and what point does it dip down and then go sideways? How thick is the line? So now you can add thickness, which is actually just part of the texture. And you can make this feature in detail. And each of the colors has to be translated into gray. So to be on the safe side, don't make anything too dark if you're not confident. Make it a medium dark or even light. And as you proceed, as the illustration proceeds, you can always make it darker. That way, there's no danger of wanting to erase. The moment you start shading, it starts changing the illustration. You start seeing more details, or you start seeing different details. Now, here is a place where we draw the line where I normally tell you what you should not be doing. This whole back and forth kind of line works wonderfully for drawing fur. So initially, I remember several years ago, I would be very strict about line quality, and I would say that drawing a line like that is wrong. And then when we had to draw animals, I had to reverse that, saying, no, 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 it's not wrong. But by then it was very late. And I think it's a little unfair to the students. So I learned my lesson there, where I've come to discover that there is really nothing wrong in art. It's just to be applied at a particular point, not everywhere. Now, remember, every time you draw a feature, before you draw the next feature, assess whether you have drawn this accurately or not. I have a feeling that my eye is a little small. So how do I know this? I can take a measurement of this and see whether the distance between the corner of the eye and the center of the face is about the same. I think it's a little, my eye is a little small, but I'm just going to go with it now. But so that is not a problem. Going with a design just because you don't want to redraw it is fine, but not knowing it is a problem. So since we don't know this fox personally, and it's not a celebrity who is going to sue us, if the eyes are a little far apart and it looks a little goofy, it's okay for the purpose of this illustration. So I wouldn't stress about it too much, and I would not ask you to erase the lines just for that. It's okay. So long as you've identified it and know that next time you probably have a propensity to exaggerate spaces or to miscalculate the sizes of features like eyes. It's important to learn, that's all. Now, all of this is a very light color, but that doesn't mean we leave it blank. We have to put in some texture. And for the purpose of this sketch, we are going to make vertical lines, a texture that is just vertical lines, very lightly, barely touching the pencil. Now I'm leaving the whole scaffolding of the face intact. I'm not really bothered about correcting that. And if some of it is seen from underneath my sketch, so much the better, because then I will remember how I had created this scaffolding. Now this brings me to another point where you don't have to memorize how we have made this face. You can come up with your own system of creating this measurement or the shapes that you see. You could start off with a triangle shape also, as long as you know the proportion of the triangle, if it is not an equilateral triangle. So I'm shading everything in a medium dark, and then as I start filling in, some places I'll start adding a darker shade, but the line will change. Now here I'm going to add shorter lines. They are darker, not the same pressure, but they are far apart. As I come closer to the nose, my lines are further apart so that though there is a texture, it is lighter. And then I will gently move into the snout. So this easy movement is very necessary. As you start filling up the spaces, more and more of the details of that animal or your reference image start becoming apparent to you. You should allow your eye to also strategically move from one feature to the next. And of course, it goes without saying, during this entire time, you should constantly be looking at the reference image. If you make more than 10 strokes on the paper without looking at the reference image, you are definitely doing something wrong. You're treading dangerous waters, I can tell you that. Because before you know it, by the 12th line, you've taken the illustration in another direction, and then you'll regret it.
Shoulder just kind of freezes with these small lines.
No, just see how you're sitting. Just pay attention to how you're sitting. And 1 minute, are you holding your phone with one hand? No, prop it up. Find some way to prop it up, because you need to have both hands on your work. Otherwise, definitely not just the shoulder freezing up, your back and your lower back will also start hurting. You need to have that balance. Now, when it comes to the nose, there are these nostrils which you don't see. Mostly we don't see them. They're in the dark part. You know they exist either because you have a dog or because you've done some animal illustration before and you know that this dark spot must have some nostrils. So I normally do a little extra stuff and I will find another picture where the nostrils are more visible and use that to position something like nostrils here. But as you can see that there's just a very tiny highlight at the base of the nostrils that is visible. That is all I will draw. But where I will make it, I could sometimes use another reference image so that I don't goof up. Now, when we come to the mouth, the upper lip, here is again a point where you don't make a horizontal line as much as like we had done with trees, you make a fence because this is the edge of a furry animal. If we make it smooth, it'll be like the mouth of a dolphin. This is not a dolphin. Okay, so these are very, very subtle things that we think that the brain doesn't notice, but it does. You'd be surprised. And the lower jaw, I want to show a little shadow. So I will just, between those lines, I will shade a little bit and then make the lower jaw like I see it. So between the lines of the upper lips, I'll make a little shadow, but I will retain that, the silhouette. And here again, the edge of the mouth is horizontal or slightly curved lines that go a little beyond the eye, the edge of the eye. Now the texture at the eyes is a fine red fur, almost the same color throughout. But the texture beyond the eyes is not just red. So you can't make the same lines. You have to make these lines slightly darker and a little far apart and following a certain contour line. So they are in a V shape, an inverted V shape at the center, and then they turn outward. They're shorter lines towards the sides, which then turn and become longer lines. Right? Can you see the difference between the two? Now for these hairs, it would help if you have a mechanical pencil, or if you have a regular pencil, please sharpen it to a nice point. So I'll show you how that can also be done. See now, my eye is a little flat here. Okay, so when you are sharpening your pencil for a very fine line, make the lead of the pencil about this tall. So pull out the wood along the sides very carefully. Oh, my pencil tip is gone, but later on, hold the pencil upside down and shave the lead off. Now, if you're as frugal as I will use this lead also for shading. Since now we know how to use paper stumps, and buds and things, you can use this. Don't throw it away. I think throwing away any art material is for amateurs. Professional artists find so many ways of using everything that comes out of their studios, which others might think as refuse. It's a great way to
Typically, we are hoarders.
technically. Sorry?
We are hoarders. We can't bear to throw anything.
Yeah, but also I sometimes find, isn't it inspiring to look at all that waste and say, okay, what can I do with it? Sometimes you can come
Up to a point. After that, it gets overwhelming.
Yes, that is also true. After that point, you're just a hoarder. I agree, which I am. I'm a proud hoarder. I have scraps of fabric from 1992 when I was in college.
Wow.
It's so lovely that I don't feel like throwing away.
I
They're
know.
little scraps.
Some things you just can't throw.
Yeah, and I thought I was a problem. Then I've discovered that my mother has lace from 1983. So I thought this is just genetic. Okay,
Yeah.
My mother has, and I have my grandmother's handmade lace. So don't even talk about that's 1950s, 1930s catalogs of her. So
yeah.
My
But
goodness.
that, Elaine, that is not hoarding, yeah. I mean, from 50
isn't.
when you have something,
Yeah.
it's not hoarding. I think that,
She was a examiner of needlework in the 1930s of Assam, all over Assam.
Wow.
Assam time wasn't divided into little states.
my
So she used to
God.
travel from place to place, and her needlework was exquisite.
I'd
Wow.
like to see it.
It's a true art form.
Yeah. Okay, so just so that now that it's at my disposal, you can use this lead with a brush and I can make it over here because I know that I'm going to make the ears uh, of the fox a little dark.
Lovely. It came out so nice with that lead.
So just a little bit of texture. And of course, it helps if you've got a very smooth texture. So if I have to do a ball or something, see, it's a lot nicer. Just a little bit of a shadow. This is divine. This is guaranteed one afternoon's time pass. Just shaving your pencil. You will have a blast.
The fox has a very sweet little wry smile on his face.
That's right, yeah. That just happened automatically.
It's very cute.
Okay, now
Rather
I'll show you
amused by
this.
the whole thing.
I'll show you this one thing. When we come to the ear, the hair on the inner part of the ear, on the inner side of the ear as well, is lighter. And then you have a dark shadow. So this is often a problem. So the only way this can be done is to first draw these hairs and then literally shade in the negative space. So you have a few hairs showing through this darkness. And they have to be, you can't make a pattern out of it. So it won't be a zigzag line. So you can just take a few dark lines towards the shadow, make it really dark on one side, and then make it dark on the, light on the other side. So here again, I'm going to show you, here's there's one more. So we have lines coming from the dark side to the light side, radiating a little bit, so that they create the illusion of hair, light colored there. So the texture that you build is crucial. Texture comes from the lines that you draw. And if you're in a rush, then you don't have to draw all the lines, but draw the lines at the edges of certain textures and colors. So I'll draw a line along the inner edge of the ear, a nice dark line along the outer edge. And I will leave some part of that feature for the brain to fill in the blank. That's okay. But make sure that for this illustration, the edges are not a straight line. They are some kind of this is much rounder than I made it. Some kind of back and forth line. Now here, since I don't have time right now, I'm not going to make too much of texture because anyway, it's slightly lighter. And I'll just end the face with a fence of these furry lines, these going sideways. But remember, the lines should not be of the same size. Now, something I've drawn over here is making my fox look more like a wolf, and that's probably the size of the eye. The proportion of the eyes versus the ears versus the face is slightly off, I think. It's more looking more like a large wolf.
Mine is looking like a hyena.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
And the fox in the picture is looking at me with very judgmentally.
Okay.
I think my face is too round.
Oh, is it?
think
It's
that's-
possible. I mean, we started.
Yeah, my face is too round and my ears are a little small. That's why it's looking like more like a hyena.
Very
Your
possible.
Aditi, your right eye is perfectly like a fox. It's only the left one which is a little rounder. That's why it's looking like a wolf. But this is a perfect fox face. Your right side,
Yeah.
perfectly right fox. Yeah, that's absolutely okay. This is the other side is the one that's bigger. It's just little rounder. That's all. Nothing.
So
Nothing
if
out of
this happens, the trick is to, no, I think the eyes are smaller than they should be. This eye
Oh,
a bit about this big. But again, these are things that you can't verify until you finish the picture.
yeah.
The picture has to be completed. When all the features come in, only then you realize what you could do differently. So you have to patiently wait till the next opportunity to do it. And if we do try to evaluate before, our evaluation is often flawed. So don't even bother.
The inside of the ear looks like a fig. You know the inside of a fig?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't.
Mine does, not yours, mine.
That's true. Pigs are also like that. All right. So if you're done with this, I'll just go over some proportions for the remaining faces, and we have the eyes and nose of the fox that you can practice. I don't even, yeah, this is a fox, but it looks like a cheetah without dots. So in this now, like I said, you can come up with your own proportions. So if we don't have a circle to start with, we have lines and we have angles. So say for example, we draw a line from the top of the ear to the nose, to the mouth, then back as far as we can go, and then straight. So whatever this shape is. Now, how do you know what the shape should be? Go right back to the clock face. So this is the center. This is 12 o'clock. Then you draw the line at say 1 o'clock. This becomes 1. If this is the center, then you draw a line which is probably a quarter of the first line. And you draw it going towards 4 o'clock. So this gives you some estimate. Then from this point, you draw a line going towards 2 o'clock. And how long is it? Is it probably as long as this one or slightly longer? And if you give it time, you can measure how much longer also without using a scale. Similarly, this line, now once you've drawn this till 2 o'clock at a particular length, automatically the two edges will make some kind of polygon. And then from there itself, you can draw things like, always think about where you can draw verticals and horizontals, because those are very easy to make. Here at half of this, you have the eye. At a little less than a quarter, you have the snout that comes at so-and-so angle, and then you have a rounded shape for the forehead. Okay, so this is one way of marking proportions. I'll share this one as well. Okay. Now, what we will try to make are the animal shapes. Because this is something we haven't done last year. I do this with the kids class, and I want to show you how I figure these out. Now, once you're comfortable with making the face of the animal, you have to then go back to just seeing the brief outline of those shapes and make it. You don't make too much in detail. And you can also make it very suggestive. You don't have to make the eye to that kind of expression as we had made. Even in this, it's all about proportion. So here as well, we will start off with, let's say if we make a circle for the head. And then looks like if I were to make a line at half horizontal and I extend it, it gives me an idea of the back of the animal. Then this line, how far should it go? Always think about how far it can go beyond that absolute measurement. So we have this measure, this is maybe half. So 2 times as much as the diameter of the circle. And then from there, we draw a vertical line right to the ground. How far is the ground if we were to make it into similar sizes, radius or diameter? And we draw a line like this. This is where the body would be. So where does this line come? This line comes at slightly less than a quarter. And then you have legs here. This leg will be at that's it. So this becomes a starting point, like we did the first illustration, and then you will draw all the other features. And this is also done very sketchily. So when you do the final picture or the final line, all we have to draw is subtle, very subtle lines. Like we probably will draw the back like that, but end the rump with a fence-like line and something like that. So I'll demonstrate this as well. You can also start drawing.
Aditi, can you take a look at my first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 1 second, I'm just putting it close. Okay, this is very nice. So Amulya, your lines are looking a little, they're looking heavy to me. So what
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what's happening is that your hand is going onto the paper with a lot of force. And just check if you're using your full palm to draw these lines. If not, then if you're drawing these lines, you're putting excess pressure when you place the pencil and then dragging it with pressure as well. So try holding the pencil further behind. And when you're making the lines, make the lines in such a way, it almost seems as if you're making ovals in the air. And as the lower part of the oval comes too close to the paper, it just skims off the surface of the paper and moves forward. So you get just lines like that. And in time, we don't even have to make that whole oval. The lines will just come. Versus when you're making lines which are, this is a very heavy line. That can be avoided. Your proportions, I think, are pretty good. The dark and light is very nice. So once you get a handle on the line part of it, it'll start becoming softer, and you will also then be able to put in at least 3 more shades. So you'll get a much lighter shade also.
Right.
Okay. All right, so let's draw the animal. First, let's draw the skeleton. Oh, sorry, my light has been off this entire time. I'm wondering why I can't see it. So this is a circle, vertical, horizontal. I think vertically the animal is not that tall. Slightly shorter. Here is our rectangle. And this is the ground. It almost looks like a cubist mammal. After you are satisfied with this much, and don't draw too many lines over here. Go back to the original image, and here now you can start drawing. Now remember, the circle was the entire neck and face. So one of our ears is coming somewhere here. Make only vertical lines or scratchy lines for the edges. Snout is just a little rhombus on the corner of the circle. And everywhere you can just make a scribble for the fur.
Amazing how if you change the angle of the ear, the whole angle of the face changes.
Yeah.
Suddenly he looks like he's looking in a different direction.
Yeah. You see.
Because then by that angle of the ear, everything else ka angle
Right.
is changing.
I find it amazing that these are some things that our brain recognizes and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
So my biggest learning from art has just been brain chemistry, I think, and
Yeah.
of course, lots of philosophy. Unexpected.
Space is a disaster in the circle thing. Dreadful.
Imagine how the animators must be after doing all this
So
drawing, then
fast.
recreating the essence of the animals. It's just crazy how they must do it.
Now I'm just realizing to be an animator, you have to be so madly passionate about it that you don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, they see the world differently. Everything is
Yeah, that's the only way it'll work, na? Otherwise you can't. I mean, it has to look only differently to you.
yeah.
A fabulous bush tail it has. Brush, as the hunt people call it.
Now, at this point, we can try painting these also,
Oh,
which is not too detailed. Don't worry. You can remove the guidelines and just slap on some color and see what a difference that makes. Those of you who might be a little tired, if you want to just watch this part, I'll be perfectly fine with that. And then you can do it later. Because I'd rather that you see what I'm doing than do it. So as a
It doesn't
study,
look like a dog, fox, nothing. It doesn't. I don't know what it looks like.
what does it look like?
It looks like a very scary skeleton. I think I'm going to stop and just watch you do it.
Yeah, it's possible that your eyes are now tired. So
just
I'm not
yeah,
tired. I'm just
side
this is
face.
like very challenging.
yeah, I know. This is can be a challenging topic. No, but just
Because
relax.
his
Yeah.
nose is just not coming right. Snout.
Okay, so in a picture like this where there is a thick background, it's only so that the white of the animal becomes visible. But here's one trick that I do for that. Even if you have, and we are going to be doing this with birds as well. Yeah, I think next week is birds, not reptiles. Reptiles we can do last week. You make a color that is a light wash of gray. And this comes from mixing black, burnt umber, and ultramarine. But it is a very light wash. So just barely enough to put in the pencil, in the brush, and make a few strokes in the white part of the animal. So sometimes this can be on birds on on their breasts. And then it's just a matter of mixing color. So I see mostly all of this as yellow ochre on the rump, a very light yellow ochre, and even a little bit of gamboge perhaps, a mix of the two going into burnt sienna. So this is what I'm going to do. Instead of coloring the whole thing, I'm going to start from the right and then mix that same color with burnt sienna as I come to the neck. And here also, like we do with pencil, we can make light and dark colors. So in some places, you will have a light washed color like this. And rub your brush and paint over the red part of the face. Notice where the white part of the whiskers is, and don't go in that. And then as you come lower, you can add a deeper shade and also another shade, maybe burnt umber. And then go back to burnt sienna. Now this edge is crucial. Use a thin brush if you need to, but here is where you can leave a little edge. And there's a little bit of sunlight, which if you want to, you can acknowledge towards the front of the foot. And as you come down, add a little bit of burnt umber. The same thing can be done over here. It's all about brushwork, clever brushwork. You do this to make it look like there's an edge, but there is also another edge which I'm going to reinforce with a small line of a light burnt umber. Now I put some paint on the left, but if I'm afraid that it's drying, I can take some more wet paint and go over this area with that and press the brush down. And bring it further down. So as I'm going, I'm changing the color in the brush. Here I'll add burnt umber. So the trick over here is to make sure that your paint is not too wet, otherwise you just leave puddles everywhere. Mine has become a little wet in a few places, so I'm being a little cautious. And wherever possible, you can, now here there's a lot of dark fur, but I don't have to make each individual hair there. I can take a little bit of burnt sienna in a few places. Now the ends, the tip of the tail is white, so I'm not going to change that. And I'm making a mix of burnt umber and black to drop in some sections, like the back of the tail. So here the consistency of the paint and the amount of pigment will matter. And I would advise erring on the side of caution. I'm dropping in layer by layer. So this is something that I unfortunately cannot show you step by step because this has to be done as the paint is wet. Most of this. And for those of you who are comfortable with color pencil, can also do this whole exercise in watercolor and color pencil, where you first put down a base wash of watercolor and then you can make it in pencil. The hind leg that is hidden behind this leg in the foreground, it has a darker color shadow. So you don't have to bother with making a light color base coat at all. And then when you're done, you can make some details with a very thin brush. Now I'm using the same brush because I'm familiar with the brush, but if you want, you can actually just use a thin brush for this part. It will help immensely. I will approach the gray again for this part. I prefer to stick with a conservative color first time round and then moving to another color. This should be red. And then here we can add more texture, which is just lines. So remember, this is a study. This is not a realistic picture. And in a study, your colors can be a little off, or they can be substitutes for the color that you want to choose, or they can create just an essence maybe and not be the real color. That's also fine. I could do this entire thing in scarlet and gamboge also, and that would still be fine. Okay, now we have 1 foot here. Now, what is there to enjoy in this painting? If you think about it, it's the play of color. And honestly speaking, I don't think it would matter whether it's a fox or whether it's another animal, so long as there is a certain joy of watercolor happening here. This is about maybe 80% of the picture complete. And as the layers grow, I will be able to put in more depth, even though the picture is so tiny. And even for something like this, I wouldn't advise making a larger picture because our reference image is so small, we won't be able to see anything. And at the base, and we're just going to put one deep green. But I'm leaving a little gap at the feet. We've not drawn the feet, right? So that means there are some grasses here, possibly, that the feet are covered in. This allows us to now make a silhouette underneath the tail. Because otherwise it is open-ended and you don't know what's happening then. Okay,
Very nice looking.
so I can go ahead and make all these also a little dark. Can you see how it's very blurred because it was a wet on wet texture, and it has just gone and merged with but it's given a nice base shadow. I can use a thin brush to make added texture over here. But essentially, I have made a study of what looks like a fox. After this is done now, if I look at these pictures tomorrow, I would find that I can make a better analysis of what is going right and what needs to be changed. Okay, so
Aditi, look at my sketch.
okay, nice.
Don't even look at that one. My painting, so I don't even want to show you. I'm going to do it again.
Okay.
I have to be done again.
No, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Okay, so the eyes are a little apart, I think. They could come narrow. But the next time you make it with this picture also in front of you. Because then you know whether you're same thing.
Yes.
The first sketch. All right. So yeah, I guess that's it. Any questions from anyone? Yeah.
Ma'am, could you just show again the quality of the line that you make for the fur? Because I realized that the quality is very juvenile, the one that I've drawn, and then to better it, go over it and it becomes really dark and it doesn't
Okay.
look good.
Okay.
So if you could just I just want to observe you once again
All right.
how you make the fur.
Okay, so fur is directional. When you have this is the face. Very often you will have fur that's on top of the head going up. Now we can, right-handed people can make this line very easy. It's this line that is difficult. So for some occasions, I would draw, say, 2 lines, turn my book, and at least make the line sideways. The line needs to be a little darker in the middle, not at the bottom and definitely not at the end. So what is desirable is a line that starts from seemingly nowhere, it just emerges, becomes dark, and goes out into nothing. And this can be modulated. So some places you have a longer, thinner line. Some places you just have it thin and it does not become thick at all. But what you don't do is this. So the difference in the two is here I will let go of the line and then it's like Bhagwan Bharose. If it goes in the right place, it's fine. But often what happens is that these crosses, so when you have to make a radial texture going outward, these things happen and that starts drawing too much attention. So the line quality has to be like this. It's almost as if my pencil is on a pendulum. And at some point, my line will come down, touch, and then go up. For shading, for coloring, all of them use the same technique. When we draw a line as people who are used to writing, our line is like this. It's firm from start to finish. Now, letting go of your hand to make this pendulous line, our first trick is to start from here and just let it go. Can you see? There's no controlling here. The control comes when you start from one place, but start light, control the line throughout with or without pressure, and then easily let go. So it takes time. Though these lines look like they're very swiftly drawn, in the beginning, these lines take a lot of time to draw. So take that time. And in time, you will be able to make lines much faster, which are of that quality and of all kinds of darkness and lightness. And you'll also be able to control things like, I don't want there to be like a layer over here. So I'll be able to control the fact that my pencil is a little light there and a little dark on this side. So I create a merge, but it is a lot more even. Okay?
Right.
The trick is to hold your pencil far away. That's number one. If you're holding it close, you won't get these lines. If you're holding it far, you just have to control the length of contact. Okay?
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So next week we are painting birds. If there are any birds that you find fascinating, please send them across. We will be doing two versions of the bird. We will be doing one that is more realistic, and then if time permits, we'll do something that's more graphic, so that you can start creating your own graphic translations of objects. I wanted to do this for the fox as well, but maybe later today I'll make that graphic and I'll send it to you.
You were saying something that you do with the kids, right?
Yeah, so with the kids, I don't have any of the kids' art. With the kids,
No.
I would translate this into a lot a simpler artwork.
Yeah.
So we work with the same kind of proportions. We have that circle, then we have vertical, horizontal. So imagine this drawn by kids. They are all over the place. Their straight lines are not straight, and it's just absolute madness, which is the best thing. So in this case now, I will make a merge of the first picture, the second picture of the fox looking sideways, and this picture. And what we'll do is create a fox like this. We come all the way here. This is at 1/4 of the circle, and then you get it to come down. So all these, I will give them some cues, draw it at so and so angle and whatnot. And then like this. And then you would draw a big fat tail like this.
This is a different ball game altogether. It's very cute. No, I
Yeah.
think you should be, you have to even be better at this than what we were doing.
Yeah, no, this is so it helps to break down the lines into simpler shapes. So you start seeing these shapes in time with all animals. And then we'll just do a coloring of this. That's how it works.
This is really cute. Yeah, we really need to do this.
We'll do this at some point.
I am incapable of
I
getting the
find this
realistic one.
easier to do.
You find the
You'll
graphic.
share that? Yeah, you'll share that image.
Yes, I'll share it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Making
I find this graphic thing much easier to do.
it is a lot easier to do. But again,
Yeah.
person to person, it differs. I
Yeah,
started.
it's all about your skill set, I think. Certain things come easier than others,
Right.
and certain
And
things are more.
I used to find making realistic images a lot easier because I was able to draw a line very well. So I could control that and draw whatever you show through my way. But to translate it into simplified forms was
This
something.
is more difficult for me also, yeah, to translate it into a simple.
So for the longest time, I've had this big mental block about illustration that I can't do it. It's like I just can't, because I can't draw realistic.
Oh, you don't need to.
So when I look at it and I say I've actually had to tell myself it's okay if it doesn't look realistic, because it is your interpretation of what you see.
Yeah.
Someone taught me that when I was studying commercial art, that as a commercial artist, it's all your interpretation. It doesn't have to, you're not a fine artist. That was a big mental block to get rid of.
I would agree. I would tend to agree. However, I am such a purist. I would insist that for even commercial art, they should have spent more time to get you guys to illustrate with pencil to a point of realism that is unparalleled. It is a necessary. For
Correct.
this exact reason,
Correct.
is for the confidence. So I don't blame you. Like I always say, you can always blame your shortcomings on your parents or your school or your government. So if your parents did the good thing, then it's probably the school that screwed it up. Because I object, since I didn't go to art school, I was at liberty to spend as much time as I wanted to pick and choose the skills that I wanted to develop for myself. And the rest I learned along the way. But the one thing that has helped me throughout, despite not having a degree in fine art or commercial art, but working my entire life in the subject, is my ability to draw anything at will. And I feel
Yeah.
that is something that they don't spend enough time on in colleges nowadays. It's just not.
Correct.
So I would
I
say
also just did
a
like
job.
1 year of, I did 1 year like basic, just very basic foundation 1 year, about 15 years back. Never managed to go to art school. But
Hmm.
I feel like, so again, see, you've not gone to art school, but you have that skill of being able to draw.
No, I don't have it. I built it.
You built it, you developed it. So I've just gotten stuck because I feel like I don't have that skill to draw.
So no, it's just a matter
And
of
I've
time.
developed other skills, peripheral skills. But
No, it's just a matter of time.
that